Making it to the 25-year mark is big news for any business. But for an indie record label, 25 years is a victory. Fat Records is celebrating that anniversary this year. The California label's founder is Mike Burkett, known to all as Fat Mike. And he's seen it grow from a fledgling startup to one of the most important labels in punk rock. Fat Mike joins me right here in Studio Q.
Fledgling, huh?
Started out fledgling. Now, all things start out fledgling.
I don't know. It went pretty smooth right from the beginning.
Well,
I did not fledgle.
Tell us about the beginning. Like, paint a picture of the operation 25 years ago.
I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, and we had a closet in the garage, a very small closet, and that was it. I had a fax machine, and
In the days of fax machines?
First year, I put out, 3 records, I think. NOFX, Lagwagon, and Propaganda. Yeah. That was it.
Winnipeg's own?
Winnipeg's, yeah. And, what's funny is having a label for 25 years is something, but we've only had one for 24 years. I just lied. I made the whole thing. Our first release was in 91. I just said, let's just do this tour, but let's just call it the 25 year. And it's only been 24 year. And you know what? Nobody noticed. It's incredible. People just believe that stuff. They'll believe anything. So, just so everyone knows that it's been 24 years. I didn't mention that until the tour started, but just so you know, yeah.
Well, we'll have you back. We'll have you back next year then for the real silver.
Really, people, it's just look at the dates.
You call yourselves fans. So was it a learn as you go type of thing? I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, I put out a NOFX 7-inch before in a record, but we just sold those on tour. There's no distribution or anything like that. Yeah, I worked at Epitaph Records for about a week and kind of stole all their secrets. But back then there was no employees; it was just Brett and Jay. So what's to learn? You just kind of put out records, and back then no one was buying any. I think what was it? S&M Airlines and Epitaph sold 1,500 copies in a year. 1,500. That's not very much.
So then why did you do it?
Well, by the time I started Fat, I put up the longest line. So NOFX, Ribbon sold 10,000. So I'm like, I could probably sell 5,000 or 6,000 of this,
okay, which
would make it profitable. And I got a loan for $20,000, co-signed by my dad. And then I was just, hey, I'll put out a few records a year. I'll see some bands on tour. It seemed like a good opportunity at the time.
Good opportunity or just fun? Like, were you thinking ahead, like, I'm going to make a profit off of this. This is going to have longevity. I'm going to be sitting down.
I thought I could make a living off it. I thought if I do this and I make, $10,000, $20,000 per band, then I could, then I don't have to get a real job. I never thought we'd get bigger than we are. There wasn't some master plan because, before Nirvana, there was no hope of anyone getting big. And really, there was nothing. It's just hardcore. The biggest selling record in the punk world was Bad Religion Suffer, and that was at 10,000.
Did you recognize something going on in the scene where you said, look, there's an opportunity here to share these bands?
No, it's just, I was out of college, and when I wasn't on tour, I had nothing to do. So I started, recording bands. I had some experience. And, I went on tour and I saw Propaganda, and I was like, wow, these guys are good. And Joey from Lagwagon gave me a demo, and I used to do the dishes and listen to that demo, and I just started it. I like to take advantage of opportunities.
You've stuck.
I never had a dream of starting a label or having a dungeon or any of the things I do. Having a cover band. Those weren't my dreams, just things that happened.
But you stuck with the same vision for this label.
Yeah, we. One thing I always wanted to do is make sure all the bands I signed I liked, and keep it, a punk label. I wasn't going to change with trends. I remember when ska got really big, and everyone was signing ska bands, and so many ska bands came to us, and I'm like, sorry, but
were you ever tempted?
Well, not tempted. I mean, that's funny because Les and Jake, they always tell the story how I rejected them in a mean letter, and then I ended up signing them, but. Which that was one of my mistakes, because they're actually such a cool band and cool guys.
Do you remember that letter? What you wrote?
No, I don't. But Vinny says something. Never send us anything again.
Was it ever hard being a rebellious musician and also a responsible business owner?
Well, no. I mean, I just I don't see what they have to do with one another. I wasn't rebellious, you know. I was a very good kid. You know, got good grades, went to college, didn't try drugs till my 30s. So
Why?
I don't know. My mom said I was smart. Said don't ruin your brain. And everyone in the band was doing drugs. Our drummer was a junkie for 6 years, and Melvin was smoking pot and taking acid and doing PCP. And I'm like, someone's got to, run this show. So I didn't do anything. I didn't smoke pot or anything.
In retrospect, are you glad you didn't try anything until you were that age?
Duh, yeah. I mean, I wish.
Why? Why?
Well, because if I was, like my friends in high school that all quit high school, and now one of them's a manager of Pizza Hut, it's because they didn't take care of business when they should have, and I don't regret it at all. I mean, I'm having so much fun now. I'm having more fun now than I ever have in my whole life.
Do you feel like that's the way to do it? That's not the way most people do it.
I have a dominatrix fiance. I have a dungeon in L.A. I walk around wearing dresses. I pretty much do whatever I want because I really took care of business in my 20s.
That's not the way most people go about it. That's what you advocate? That approach, though?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, get your take your cuss together. Keep your cuss together. Get your cuss together. And but I'm also, a lot of people, they get their jobs and they get their profession and they have their kids and they go, yeah, when we're around 60, then we're really going to start having fun. But then you can't because your bones are going to break. You're not dropping into half pipes when you're 60. So
that's interesting. That's a conversation I have a lot with my friends is what is the age where you don't buy groceries, you just buy Cinnabons and burgers, and you just do whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to get really fat. That would. What year do you want to get really fat?
I've never fantasized about drugs. I've fantasized about only buying Cinnabons.
Cinnabons.
Just Cinnabon only diet.
Wow. Yeah, those are they're too much for me.
Really?
Just one bite. They're too sweet.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I pretty much nailed it. I think 32 is a good year to start doing drugs.
Was it ever a challenge between being a friend and collaborator and being a business owner?
Friend and a collaborator,
like a friend, like you've described Fat Records as like family, but at the same time,
it's actually
boss,
easy.
Right?
It's actually easy. If you ever have to cuss over a friend, that's hard. If you screw somebody over, that's hard. Then you have to, and so many people do that. So many labels, so many businesses, and you have to learn how to live with screwing somebody over, because it's not something anyone wants to do. It's just they make that choice. And at Fat Records, we've really never screwed any band over in the slightest. Because if you do it once, that word could spread to everybody. So you can ask any person in any band on the label, well, except maybe Ben Weasel, and no one will say anything bad about the label.
Past bands and current bands.
Yeah, and I'm friends with all the bands that have left. And, we just got Anti-Flag back. Face to Face are coming back. Les and Jake went away and came back. A lot of our bands that left, they didn't leave for bad reasons, and I told them to. Like Anti-Flag got a huge deal on a major label, and I said, you guys are not going to get bigger on a major label, but go ahead, take the money. I can't give you that much money. And then just recently, I was on a plane with them by coincidence, and I just said, hey, let's do a greatest hits album. And they said, sure, you're the only label we ever make money off of. So yeah, let's do it.
Is that the thing you're proudest of in terms of the legacy of the label, is the fact that you have these great relationships with these bands?
Yeah, I'm really proud of that. I'm proud that no one will talk shit. People talk shit. Oh,
cuss.
People talk cuss about me because for some reason people think I'm a jerk. I don't know why. I think I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm just a little short with people sometimes, and I get drunk. But as far as the label goes, yeah, it's exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't want to. I mean, it's a choice you make in capitalism. You can make money and do it the right way. You don't have to, wring out the rag and get every drop. And you can just do what's fair. And if we've put out quality products over all these years, well, not always, but there's enough for everyone. When we were doing good in the '90s, we were giving bands bonuses. Like one year we gave Lagwagon 25 grand here for Christmas, and we were giving that to employees because we were having good years and just giving money to our people.
A lot of people start out with good intentions, but they get it wrong at some point.
Right.
You've been doing it right for 25 years. Why do you think you've been able to do that?
It's a choice you make. What was the hardest thing was we thought we were going to do. We did so well in the late 90s, and we knew the record industry was going to start dying, like songs Dinosaurs Will Die, but we didn't know it hit us so hard. And we had 4 offices around the world, and we had to get rid of 13 people out of 18. So, and we didn't for 3 years, but then we had 3 years in a row of losing money. And, I'm not going to lose money. That got ridiculous. In fact, we waited too long because we felt so bad. We wanted to try to figure out how we're going to save this. But all we had to do was get rid of some people and keep our people's salaries under control. And we had to tell people, hey, we can't pay you as much. You're going to have to take half cut in your pay. And people don't want to hear that.
That's not easy to hear. It's not easy to say.
Yeah, but it's like, hey, we're not making money anymore. We just lost money 3 years in a row, and we want to keep the label going. So this is how it's going to have to be.
We're going to play a clip later from Dinosaurs Will Die, and we'll talk more about this. But first, I want to go back to the 90s, to the boom time. What was that like, being a part of that, seeing your peers, your own band, your label take off? What was that like?
It was crazy, and it was so fun and easy because pretty much every band we signed got popular. The first, I think, 7 bands we signed to Fat Records, they all did very well. And it just wasn't hard because we never spent a lot of money on marketing. We never did radio, really. And we'd spend maybe, $30,000, $40,000 in marketing and in recording a band. And they'd sell 200,000 copies. It was awesome. I mean, like High Standard, their first record growing up, they sold 700,000 copies around the world. What? I mean,
what was it about that time? Why was it such fertile ground for that music?
Well, well, punk rock's always been the best kind of music. I mean,
why?
Well, because it is. It's clear. It's more melodic. It's better lyrics. It's played by cooler people. You can see a band that's playing 3 feet in front of you, and people aren't rock stars like other bands. Everything about punk rock is better than any other kind of music. I mean, metal, yeah, it's so it sounds heavy, but like we snuck into Slayer's backstage, and Kerry King comes back and started yelling at us because we took their potato chips. Like what? What is wrong with you? So we stole some Slayer snacks. Why are you yelling at us? You don't get that with punk bands. It's just it was so nice that punk rock did get popular because when I was a kid, I just couldn't believe it wasn't popular. What is wrong with you people? Why are you listening to orchestral maneuvers in the dark when you could be listening to Social Distortion?
Do you feel like that spirit is still alive? That
camaraderie? Absolutely. I mean, there's in some of the bigger punk bands, I notice a little, competitiveness. But for the most part, when a punk band plays, we get on stage and we watch our friends, and you're supportive. And I remember when Green Day got big, I was so happy for them. When Dookie came out, I'm like, yeah. And other styles of music, you're bitter.
Yeah. How
come it wasn't me? And that's another thing that's great about punk rock. It's just it's people are very supportive. With definitely exceptions, but it's still a great scene. And people always ask, punk rock is so much different now. No, some bands got popular, but you can still go to a bar in San Francisco and see some drunk musicians play crappy punk songs in front of 40 people. And that's exactly how it was 30 years ago.
You talked about the music industry changing. At what point did you realize things were about to get a lot more difficult for an indie label?
Well, just got to pay attention. The internet.
A lot of people didn't pay attention, though.
Yeah, a lot of labels went under.
Yeah.
And we waited too long. But it's just it's such a weird culture right now where kids, they don't really know about albums or care about them. Even though vinyl's doing better, kids today, and I have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old. 16-year-old, she watches everything on YouTube. She watches one song, and generally she doesn't even finish the song. She doesn't listen to albums, and you miss so much. Like Ziggy Stardust, you need to hear the album, not just the one song.
I talked to Noel Gallagher, and he was telling me about his daughter and one experience he had with her where he said, "Oh, I just had a meeting about the album art for my new record." She's like, "What's album art?" And he said, then he realized in that moment, oh yeah, that little thing.
Yeah.
That little thing on your
yeah.
iTunes. And then he suddenly realized that the record industry had changed
and then
a lot.
And then he started a fight with someone. No. That's the one that doesn't start fights, right?
Yes, that's the one that doesn't start as many fights.
I went to a New Year's Eve party at their house once. Boy, was that weird.
What went down?
There's about 30 people, and people are all wasted. And Andy from Travis everyone just not introduced themselves, but Andy was the only guy that talked to me, and I couldn't understand a word he said because he's Scottish. And around midnight, Oasis just started playing Oasis. They just would not stop playing their own records and rocking out. I'm like, wow, they really do think they're that good. So, but
yeah,
Gam, their guitar player, he's awesome, dude.
Okay, I want to ask you about why you guys, Fat Records, were able to survive. You talked about vinyl still being popular.
Yeah, at one point, my partner, Aaron, we decided, we were on the fence about whether we should close down or not. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago, because we figured if we stop putting out new bands and just have the label sell stuff and do internet, we would make more money. But it just meant too much to keep it going. And so we just said we just have to figure out a way where we can make money and keep the label going. Because it's it's fun. It's such a big part of my life. So a lot of it was like my ego. I didn't want to close it down because it means so much to me, and the bands do. And now we run it in a way where we make money. We don't make a lot of money, but by having the record store and just not spending a lot of money. And now bands come to us and they're like Banner Pilot, like we have a record, and they paid for it, and we give them a really good royalty rate, and we don't spend a lot of money. So now we have a model that we think is going to keep going, and it's just nice to keep something going that's pure and hasn't changed. And for 24 years now, we just keep putting out good punk rock, I think.
And that is the upside of the music industry now, is it is cheaper to make records and market records.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Sure. I mean, bands can make records. They do make them cheaper because you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to actually practice your songs and have them written before you go in the studio, which is really, so many bands didn't do that years ago. They'd have 3-song ideas and just spend, Blink-182, they spent 364 days in the studio to do their last Jerry Finn record. I mean, come on.
What do you see as the biggest flaw that the major labels had in the way they were doing business? If you can narrow it down to just one.
Well, signing bands for multi-record deals, it's not a flaw. It's just, we can do this, so let's do it. And, Fat, we've always done 95% 1-record deals and occasionally 2-record deals. And a lot of bands, like Good Riddance, we've never had a contract. Just, there's no contract. We signed this band called The Pairs recently, and I just hand wrote some stuff. It's super funny. I said, you have to do as many records as Fat Records wants you to do, unless you don't want to. And everything just means, my lawyer's like, this means nothing. I go, well, who cares? I mean, because I wouldn't want a band on the label that doesn't want to be on the label. That's crazy.
Why do you think other people don't see it this way? You've been able to do business like this for 24, we'll say 25 years.
Well, the reason is because if you sign a band and you spend $2 million marketing them, you're going to want a few records.
Yeah.
and we don't spend that kind of money. Faith No More, I'm friends with Billy from Faith No More, and they did that first record, The Real Thing, actually the second record, and it was huge, a multi-platinum, and they were all flush with money. And then they did the next record, and it didn't do that well, and then they never saw any money from their first record anymore because the label cross-collateralized and took all their money.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And he's like, I'll never see a royalty check again. And we have a policy at Fat Records which isn't in contracts, but if a band has one really good record and another record loses money, we don't cross-collateralize. We can. Legally you can, but we just don't do it. Well, only when a band is broken up.
Where'd you learn your ethics? Those ethics?
You don't learn them. I mean, you just kind of have them. I mean,
well, you got to pick them up from somewhere.
I didn't pick them up from anywhere. It's just being fair. It's just being fair. But a couple of bands broke up, and we'd be like, well, if you're not working anymore and you all have jobs, we'll cross-collateralize because your last record we gave you a bunch of money and we just lost our ass.
Yeah.
But not if a band's working. They need the money. And it's also, I've always had the you win some, you lose some policy.
Yeah.
All around my life. Sometimes you got to lose. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just, chalk it up to a loss and move on.
Okay, so this sort of ethic, to you, it's common sense. It's just being fair. But what has reinforced those values for you?
Well, I don't know. That's a weird question. But I will tell you, luckily, in the 90s, all our bands did great. So I never had to make any kind of moral choice. Because, hey, success, what I've always said is success is not being successful. It's you and all your friends being successful. Because that is success.
Yeah.
If you're the guy with the big house on the hill, well, that's no fun.
That's not very fun. No. Okay, whether it's your record label or your music, you've always been vigilant about being independent. Where does that passion come from?
I don't think I've been vigilant.
Well, I don't know. Okay, vigilant isn't the right word, but it's important to you.
Yeah, not as important as people would think. I just think it's smart. And I don't want to do things that are stupid because someone is telling me we have to. Like we had about 20 distributors in the U.S., and the big distributor we had was owned by Sony, RED, and they said, if you're going to be with us, you have to go exclusively with us and drop all these other distributors. And I said, well, no, we're not going to do that. And I had a meeting with the president. He's like, why won't you just do this? We're going to take care of you guys. I said, well, I made deals with these guys. And he's like, so you're just doing it because you don't want to drop these distributors to be fair? I said, yeah, it's got nothing. I don't want to do that because I don't want to screw over these people I've been doing business with. And he said, all right. So they kept us. And out of their hundreds of labels, we're the only label that has a non-exclusive deal.
Just because it made sense to you. Like that was the
fair
and right thing to do.
And I said, you guys you're making, and this was when we were flush, you guys are making like $800,000 a year off of us. You want to give that away? Give it away. I don't care. But we're not going to go exclusive. But that's just because we had all these distributors. It was good business.
Yeah.
And a lot of moves we make, it's because it's just smart. When I went with Fuse TV to put out our Backstage Passport thing, I signed with a company, and I had no idea how bad I was going to get screwed. It was incredible.
What happened?
So many things. First of all, they're like, it was called Punk Rock Passport. And like, we think that's going to scare people off, Punk Rock Passport. So we're like, well, we're a punk band and we're on tour, and it's not going to scare people off. Scary, punk rock. So they decided they wanted to call it NOFX Final Passport. We're like, oh, great. So now everyone's going to think we're broken up. And the president's wife came up with Extreme Passport or something. So so I finally met with the president, and I said, look, we'll call it this, Backstage Passport, not punk rock. And we're going to have this and this and this, and that's how it's going. It's like, well, no. I said, well, okay, but I'm going to go to every media source that I know, and I'm going to talk bad things about you and your company. And he's like, why would you do that? I'm like, because you're taking all power away from us. I'll do everything I can to destroy your company. And he goes, okay, let's go with your title. And it was the worst 3 months of my life, just watching them edit things, that making storylines that weren't true. We're just going to go with this. Just say this happened. It didn't happen. I'm not going to. What is wrong with you people? I mean, we sold them the show after we filmed it. And it's just crazy what a bunch of pricks they were. And I learned my lesson. I'm glad it came out on whatever TV, but now we have a second season and we're just doing it ourselves.
A lot of bands go through that sort of experience with a big company, but they don't have the confidence to confront them.
Yeah, I like awkwardness and confrontation. And look at me, I'm wearing a dress. I just started doing that because it's so funny. Walking down the street, I feel like a punk rocker again. I feel like I could get my ass kicked at any point.
Did punk rock kind of teach you that, to enjoy confrontation and awkwardness?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it teaches you. Is you're always on the defensive. You're always looking at, down the street, what's coming at you, and you put yourself in a position to be a minority. Really, we're a chosen minority, but you get treated differently everywhere you go. Not anymore.
Yeah.
But when I started wearing a dress, yeah, I get people think I'm a weirdo, and
that's where you got to take.
I'm a weirdo.
That's where you have to take it at this point.
Well, it's fun for me.
Yeah.
I mean, going to Heathrow Airport in a dress is super fun. People don't know what to make of me.
You still go on the road a lot. You still love it?
Yeah, short tours.
Short tours, not into the long tours anymore.
We haven't done a tour longer than 3 weeks in like 15 years. Ever since you started popping out kids, we don't want to be away from the kids. And then also, after 14 shows, I'm done. My liver is done. And that's the problem with a lot of bands is they do these 6-month tours or year-long tours, and it absolutely becomes a job to them. And they don't want to do it. And their label's telling them they got to do it now. You got to strike when it's hot. And NOFX, we don't strike when it's hot. We strike. We don't even strike. We just kind of slosh around. And we put out a new record, and we don't tour on the new record. We just tour when it seems like a good time to tour. And it makes it fun.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, how you guys doing? Because we haven't seen each other in 3 months. So we just have a great time. And man, you know what? The guys in my band and crew, they're such cool guys. Nobody fights, and we've been together for so long. And the three original, me and Eric, 32 years. And and just things have always gone well.
Why do you think that is? These things are extremely rare, this kind of longevity with a record label or with a band, with particular people. Why do you think it works so well with the band?
Because we're not dicks. I mean, when I asked NOFX to be on Fat Records, they said, "What are you going to give us?" I go, "I'm going to give you the exact deal that Epitaph gives. You're not going to give us anything more." I'm like, "No, I'm going to make more money." And instead of Brett, me, Mike, your buddy, and they looked at each other and they said, "Okay, let's do it." How cool is that? I didn't have to give him any special treatment because you want your friend to be successful. Why not?
You have your hand in a lot of different projects. What are you first and foremost? Are you a musician first?
Oh, no.
What are you first?
What am I first? I think if I only do one thing for the rest of my life, it would be like BDSM. That's my biggest passion is my sexuality. That's the funnest thing.
Interesting. You wouldn't say you're a writer first or you're a I don't know what first. It's sort of like agitator
I don't have
first.
to give up those things.
Yeah.
So I think it's a rhetorical question, or is it the other kind of question?
No, it's the other kind of question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people do a lot of
What
things.
is it? What's the name? What is it? Don't you know what it is?
A question?
No. There's another word.
For when a question just means a question?
What is it? Does everybody know?
I think it's just the producers. No, hands up.
All right.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people, they do a lot of different things, and they see one through line. They're like, at the core of it, I'm this. Like this is.
No, I mean, I started to be in a band because it looked like it was fun, and I really do like writing songs, but it's just stuff you do. I mean, if I went to college, I went to real estate school because I figured I'm never going to make a living playing punk rock. So I'll sell houses to do what I really like to do.
Hmm.
And you don't have to have a job that you love. Luckily, some of us do, but you don't have to.
Yeah,
You just have to do what you love, and you have a job so you can do those things. If you don't have anything you love, well, that's no good. But
that's a whole other problem. Um, okay, one of the things that you've done recently is you've written, composed, and debuted a punk rock musical.
I'm musical.
A musical,
Yeah, it's not a punk rock musical.
just a musical.
Yeah, there's maybe 5 punk songs out of 28.
Okay.
It's a traditional. I mean, it's a musical.
Well, how'd you get involved with musical theater?
The first thing I ever heard was Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was 8. I taped it off my TV, and I've never been involved with musical theater. I like it when a musical is good, and there's been so few good musicals in my opinion. But when the one's good, like Hedwig, it just changes your world. So, I wrote 3 of the songs from this musical about 18 years ago now,
Wow.
and it was just on the back burner. And then I wrote 3 more and 3 more, and then 5 years ago I started writing it with Soma Snake Oil, and we spent like a year really working on it, and then finished the script. And then Jeff Marks from Avenue Q, he heard one song, and he's
So
like,
you were a big fan of his?
huge fan of Avenue Q,
Yeah.
and I've seen it 4 times, 3 times before I met him. Met him once, he was really nice. I sent him one song, and he's like, "This song is incredible. Can I get involved?" So that was about 4 years ago. So me, him, and Soma have been really working our asses off for 4 years. I mean, it's crazy.
The amount of work.
Yeah, I had no idea. Jeff said it was going to take 4 or 5 years. I was like, no, dude.
Such a
gonna take a
different
year.
project from music, from a band, right?
Yeah, if you're in a band, imagine this. Imagine recording a record, being happy with it, and then playing it for some people, a bunch of people, and them all giving all the criticisms, and you have to go back and fix all that. Doing that 20 times over 5 years. And the thing is, it keeps getting better, but people keep bringing up stuff like, why do you have this? And what about this? Yeah, and we have been playing it. Like I said, you have to play it in front of audiences and see how it goes over. And things you thought were going to be hysterical are not. And you have to change the order of songs. You have to change the plot if something isn't working. But we played in Connecticut, and we had a room of senior citizens purposely.
Okay.
And nobody thought they were going to stay, or some of them, but every single one of them stayed through intermission and stayed for the Q&A, and they all loved it, which was very surprising.
Because this play goes to explores some dark,
Really dark. It's really dark. And
there's homelessness, sexual abuse.
yeah, and drug abuse and of a lot of violence. But they said the songs kept us in it because the songs are so catchy and different than the juxtaposition to the story, and the songs are so different that they were just blown away by it. And then we knew, like, we got something here. And we opened in San Francisco with the full production, and it was interesting because I thought my name being attached to it would sell tickets, and ticket sales were terrible. The first night sold out, and the other shows had like 15 tickets sold, out of a 300-seater. And after the first show, everything sold out. So word of mouth just went, and that was so awesome because we were like, oh my God, we've been working all these years on this, and it's a huge flop. But it turned out, I mean, like Larry Page and his wife came,
Wow.
from Google.
Yeah.
We had all these just huge people that bought tickets at the end to see it, and it was super rewarding.
Tell me about the content, the dark places that this thing explores. What was it? Tell me about that choice to go there.
Well, it's about street kids and how they got there and how they deal with it, and a lot of producers are having a problem with this. They keep telling us that no one's going to believe this. No one's going to believe that kids living on the street are having a good time. And we're not saying they all are, but I've stayed at squats, and Soma has lived on the street, and she's a dominatrix. She's a sex worker, and I know girls that were punk rockers and prostitutes. And you know what? No one is bummed. It's just what you had to do. And punk rockers we always had a good time. Okay, NOFX is first starting. We were just staying on squats, people's floors, or just staying. We used to sleep under the van sometimes, but we always had a good time. It's different than most homeless people who are not having a good time because they lost everything or went crazy. But kids, they're just doing what they do.
Who's giving you that feedback that this is not believable?
You know, some producers on Broadway and writers. We invite a lot of writers to our readings, and a lot. What we hear from a lot, the regular people who come see the show, they're like, "That was amazing. That was so great." But writers are like, "I don't know who you think is going to believe this." Well, it's the truth. We just have to get them to believe it, but we're not going to change it like you would to make a story that's believable. So much on Broadway is just made up in someone's mind, and because they think people will like it. They make it palatable. We made it so the songs make it palatable, and our story. I mean, the whole thing is based on chosen family. You know, we get to choose our family. You don't need to stick with the family you're stuck with. And if bad things happen to you when you're a kid, don't let it ruin your life. That happened to you. You didn't do anything wrong, and you can live a wonderful life. Just don't let that person or those people that that abused you ruin your life. And it's such a positive message, but people, it's a tough pill to swallow. Some of it's hard to watch.
The way you're describing this play kind of reminds me of melodic punk rock in the sense that you have these sort of sweet melodies, but the message that's involved the content might be quite challenging and difficult.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, you know, drugs are, if you're a drug addict, that's no good, but if you're a drug user, that's not really such a problem if you're under control. And we also show the difference between all the people who are doing drugs every day, but they're legal, because they're antidepressants or whatever, and people who do street drugs. And if I don't know, the only difference is you know exactly what you're getting with one of them, and one you can go to jail for, and one you don't. But people do drugs, and I just it's so crazy to me how people make a differential. How they think, oh, you do that? That's so bad. I can't believe you're doing that. I do this. You know, I'm on Zoloft, and I'm fine. But you take ecstasy, you're a loser. And it's the same thing. They both do the same exact thing to your brain. They release, you know, serotonin and whatever else, just different doses.
Why do you think people make those distinctions?
Well, it's because people like to look down on other people, and that's another thing we do. It was so amazing when we opened in San Francisco because there was a homeless couple living across the street from the theater. They were in a tent, and we heard them fighting one night. And there was a girl and a guy, and it was scary. So someone I went over, and I had a baseball bat to make sure she was okay. And we're like, "What's the matter? What's going on?" She said, "I'm hungry, and he won't get me any food." So we had some burritos. So we gave him a 6-pack and a burrito, and talked to them for a while. And we invited them to the next show. And they came in, and they loved it. And they were like, "Yeah, I'm a writer," and I forget what the guy did, but we're down on our luck, and we're living in this tent because we got kicked out of our place. And they're just normal people like everybody else, but and they were just stoked. Thanks for the beer and the burritos. Just normal people, and they love the show. You go, you got it exactly right. We don't know why everyone looks so down upon us. We're just people, and that's what we're really trying to get there. We're trying to get the people. Yeah, they're down on their luck. It doesn't make them any different from you.
Have you seen that content explored and done well before?
I don't think so, and not in a fun way. But the same thing is, they're partying. They're having a good time sometimes. Some nights are not good, but just because you're on the street doesn't mean that your life is over, especially if you're young.
One last question. What have you learned from the process of doing this musical?
That was a huge lesson for me. Because when Soma invited them to the show, I'm like, "You're going to invite them to the show?" She's like, "Yeah, why not?" And I really thought, like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then after I met him and talked to him, I was like, "Man, what's wrong with me? I'm writing a show about this." And I just learned a lesson. Like, yeah, they're, and she still talks to him. She got their phone number.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much for being here, Mike.
I'm leaving? I'm done?
I think we're out of time.
All right.
Yeah.
There it is. Home Street Home.